You're watching Al Jazeera. We break in to bring you some breaking news, and we're hearing that Israeli and Houthi-affiliated media both saying that Israel has carried out airstrikes on the east of Hodeidah, and that's in Yemen. So what Israeli media are reporting is that 30 Israeli fighter jets carried out the attack. And this coming a day after the Houthis hit Israel's main international airport in Tel Aviv. We'll speak to our correspondent, Ali Hashim, joining us here in the studio. So, Ali, this news just coming in. Once again, we know that there are strikes that have targeted Yemen's Hodeidah port. Tell us what you're hearing. How many strikes? How big was this? And what are you learning this hour?
Initial reports are indicating there are 9 attacks, 30 planes, 30 Israeli planes were participating in this attack that was coordinated with the United States. We understood now that Prime Minister Netanyahu and his defense minister were supervising this attack from the war room in Tel Aviv. So for now, this attack, according to the Israelis, is in retaliation to the Yemeni rocket attack on the Ben Gurion airport in Israel. But this is, of course, not the first time that the Israelis are attacking Yemen. We've seen several attacks by the Israelis, and this round is actually similar to the one that came after the Yemeni drone hit a target or a building in Tel Aviv a few months ago.
When you say that there was coordination with the United States, are we learning any more details about that and the extent of the coordination and how involved the U.S. was?
Well, for now, what we know is that there was coordination, or there is coordination with the United States. And we already know that the United States is conducting airstrikes in Yemen. It's been going on for the past weeks. So
even
now,
during the Biden administration, in fact.
Absolutely. So now we're seeing a new phase. But this new phase is related to a direct Israeli interest, whereas the Israelis are saying they are retaliating to the attack on the Ben Gurion airport. But over the past months, I mean, since the beginning of the war in Gaza, the Ansarullah or the Houthis have been launching rockets and drones towards Israel. On several occasions, at least in 2 main occasions, we know. The one drone that hit a building in Tel Aviv, and today, and actually a few days ago, the attack that hit the Ben Gurion airport. These were the most significant, and we saw the Israelis attacking several locations or targets inside Yemen, mainly the Hodeidah port. We've seen today now with the reports coming on the attack on the Hodeidah port, which is a strategic port.
Do we know what targets they have hit?
For the moment, we don't
port?
have much information. Of course, in probably a few minutes or few hours, we'll start knowing what are the targets. But what we know now is that there was a factory that was hit, and of course, the port of Hodeidah.
And any information coming in right now about whether there have been casualties, injuries?
Not yet, but what we know, at least from the reports coming, that the American troops did not, or American planes, were not part of this attack. It's only about coordination. The Israeli army used around 48 missiles in this attack. They launched around 48 missiles. 9 attacks, 9 targets were hit, and around 30 planes, 30 fighter jets took part in this attack.
Let's just take a step back for a second, because what happened earlier this week, and this is why Netanyahu has promised to hit Yemen, according to him, very hard, is that missile, right, that was sent from 2,000 kilometers away from Yemen to Tel Aviv, hitting the vicinity of Ben Gurion Airport. It did avoid the main tower, the control tower. Yeah. But it hit near the main terminal, right? So just talk us through that and how big a blow it was for the Israelis that this missile from Yemen was able to evade the Israeli defense systems as well as the U.S. defense systems.
Well, over the past week, I mean, before the attack on Ben Gurion, on the Ben Gurion airport, there were several Yemeni attacks, and precisely in North Israel. we've seen this, and this was actually significant, and we were not used to such alerts coming from northern Israel for attacks coming from Yemen. What indicates that these rockets coming from Yemen were able to cross and to avoid the several layers of defense that the Israelis already have in place. Now, with the attack on the Ben Gurion airport, it seems that this rocket, at least for now, was able to avoid all the defenses, despite the very complicated nature of the Israeli defense system or the defense systems. You have the Iron Dome, you have THAAD, you have several ones, and getting into the airport and hitting somewhere away from the terminal, which gives an indication, another indication also, that the Yemenis or the Ansarullah didn't want to hit directly the terminal, but they wanted to send a message. Now, in a wider picture, we are still in the middle of the war in Gaza. Despite the truce or the ceasefire that was reached a few months ago, but since the Israelis resumed this war, it was only the Yemeni front that was still supporting Gaza after what happened on the Lebanese front, after what happened on the Iraqi front. So for now, it's the only Ansarullah or the Houthis who are still launching rockets in support of Gaza. And of course, this is just complicating the situation for the Israelis,
right,
giving them a kind of a message that this is not going to end any soon.
This is an important point you make, because this missile that was launched from Yemen and others that have been launched in the past, I mean, these are not happening in a vacuum, right? The geopolitical context here is that Israel is continuing its genocide in Gaza, it's striking Syria, it's striking Lebanon as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen the attacks in Syria, actually mainly in Syria. The attacks around the presidential palace, in different cities, in Lebanon, attacks, assassinations, warnings, buildings being destroyed in the southern suburb. So it's like the Israelis were on a kind of a free ride everywhere, except now with this situation where the Houthis or Ansarullah are saying that there is a different calculation here. And despite the fact they are already under fire, under Israeli and American airstrikes, they are still capable of launching their rockets. And this gives a kind of a picture of how much complicated this conflict is becoming.
Ali, the Israeli Prime Minister also, just about a day ago, after the missile strike from Yemen, promised to hit hard. And he said that Yemen, the Houthis, Ansarullah, would face the consequences, but that Iran would also face consequences from the strike. Why would he involve Iran? And what's the message that he's sending right now to Iran?
Well, given the fact that this attack came in a time where the Americans and the Iranians are already having talks over the nuclear deal, and this is something that Prime Minister Netanyahu didn't show really any positivity towards. He's always skeptical towards talks with Iran, always skeptical towards reaching a deal, and he thinks that dismantling the whole program is the only solution. There were some incidents that took place in the past weeks. We saw the explosions in an Iranian port city in Bandar Abbas, and later on some fires here and there. So there were kind of accusations. Now, no one has any kind of a final say or can give any proof or evidence that this was sabotage. Well, the idea of coincidences in such a time when the talks between the Americans and the Iranians are taking place, a very huge explosion will take place on the other side of the Gulf, that was a bit skeptical for many people. Now, with Netanyahu putting Iran directly as the accused of being behind this attack, he's trying to say, or preserving the right to hit Iran. Now, how he is going to do this, he said he keeps the location of the targets and the timing upon their own decision. But that gives him also the chance to sabotage those talks.
Okay, Ali, stand by for just a moment. We're just going to recap our breaking news this hour. So these are the latest pictures that we're getting from Yemen. That's the map, actually, showing Yemen. So what happened just about 10 minutes or so ago is that there were 48 missiles, according to our correspondents, that were launched from Israel towards Yemen in coordination with the United States. And these were launched towards the Hodeidah port. Yemeni media also reporting that these strikes did take place. Yemeni media blaming the strikes on Israel as well as the United States. And just a reminder, this all coming just about a day after the Houthis, Ansarullah, launched a missile that struck near Israel's main airport in Tel Aviv, and that is Ben Gurion Airport. So the Israeli prime minister at the time vowing a harsh response, and it seems like this is the response that has taken place. We'll bring in with us now on set Rami Khouri. He's joining us. He is a distinguished fellow at the American University of Beirut. Rami Khouri, what are your initial thoughts on this Israeli strike on Yemen?
Well, it's pretty much inevitable. And like all Israeli strikes, it's going to be massive and sustained, destroy a lot of civilian stuff, kill a lot of people who are not involved in the military action. And it's designed to send a message that anybody who hurts Israel is going to get hurt in much greater intensity. This is how Zionism and then the State of Israel has always behaved, that they have the power now to do almost anything they want militarily across the Middle East, with intelligence assistance from the U.S. and probably the U.K. and other people, and they are using this power. The combination of the United States and Israel, there is no stronger pair of military forces in the world. But with all their power and with a year and a half of what Israel has done in Gaza and Lebanon and some actions in Iran and Iraq, they still haven't deterred the resistance from the different Arab countries and Iran, and rhetorically from Turkey as well.
And that is something that the Houthis come out and say, right? The spokesperson says after previous strikes that we will not be deterred, and this is all in support of the Palestinians and the genocide that's taking place in Gaza.
That's right. And if you go back over the years, you see that the ability of groups that are fighting Israel, resisting it, their technical abilities have improved, and to the point where the Ansarullah in Yemen now have supersonic missiles that can evade some of the multiple layers of defense in Israel. The Iranians got some missiles into Israel as well, back when they had their action last year. So the technical capabilities of these groups who are fighting Israel keep improving with time, as does the will to resist. But the Israelis and the Americans still have dominant force that can flatten these countries, which they've done in Gaza. They did it in parts of Lebanon several times. They're doing it in parts of Syria, more localized. And this is only a recipe, as the last 75 years tell us, it's only a recipe to have more intense warfare coming up around the corner. Because just like the Jews in history and the Israelis have never submitted to superior forces, whether it was the Romans or the Russians or whoever it was in history who subjugated them, they fought back. And this is human. It's nothing to do with being Jewish or Israeli or Muslim or Arab or Iranian or Turkish. When you're subjugated, you resist. You fight back. And the Americans need to be reminded once in a while that it was an American who came up with the phrase that is so moving to people, which is give me liberty or give me death. That's an American phrase, which Americans celebrate. But when Arabs or Iranians or Turks or Palestinians or anybody uses that attitude, give me liberty or give me death, they call us terrorists, they call us extremists, fundamentalists, whatever. So this is a completely anticipated move, but is not likely to achieve the goals any more than the military power of Israel and the U.S. support achieved the goals in Gaza.
Right.
And it might backfire on the Israelis in many ways.
Elaborate on that. When you say backfire, how do you mean? And also, just based on what you're saying about that, the strikes haven't deterred any sort of resistance group. So important to note as well, and to remember that this is one of the poorest countries in the world, right?
Right.
Who's up against the Israelis and, according to this information, the Americans as well.
Right. So it can backfire by expanding the war further. So that already there's been action militarily between the U.S., the U.K., Israel, and Ansarullah in Yemen. But this may reach a higher level. If the Ansarullah have more missile capabilities that can hit other targets in Israel, and we'll find out soon if that is the case, this is going to create more panic in Israel, probably causing Israel and the U.S. and others to expand their military assaults, all in the name of protecting Israel and self-defense, which is not credible because it hasn't really worked. And you'll get political pressure within Israel, you'll get political pressure around the world that says, look, this is enough. These Israelis and Americans have used incredible power and killed tens of thousands of people, destroyed, made Gaza a desolation. And they still say they're going to now increase the military action in Gaza and stay there. This is not realistic. So you have to see what the Israelis and Americans do in military action, and then you have to listen to what they say. You have to take more seriously what they do, their actual attacks. What they say is more designed as propaganda, inspiration to their soldiers, making their people feel a little safer, maybe for their political ties abroad. But the rhetoric that comes out of Israel is largely non-credible, based on what we've seen in the last year and a half in Gaza. So I would urge people to differentiate between what Israel does and what it actually says. And this, of course, is probably going to increase the diplomatic pressure to either resolve the hostages crisis and the Palestinian prisoners crisis, the Israelis who hold around 10,000 Palestinian prisoners. Either the pressure will resolve that and then stop the war and get the Israelis out of Gaza, or it'll cause people around the world to start treating Israel like they treated South Africa,
right,
which is an unacceptable apartheid, genocidal, racist approach. And this is not acceptable in perpetuity. It's been acceptable to many in the West for the last year and a half, but if it keeps going further and it keeps destroying more countries around the region, this creates huge problems for some of the Arab allies of the United States, like Jordan, like Saudi Arabia, etc.
I wanted to ask you about that, in fact, and the implications of all of this on the region. But just hang tight for a second. Ali Hashim, any more information you're learning this hour, and any official comment from Houthi representatives?
Well, we are hearing from the media affiliated with the Houthis that one of the targets was a cement factory close to the hodeidah port. But now an Israeli official is telling Channel 14 in Israel that the attacks destroyed the port of Hodeidah and a concrete factory that supported the Houthis' military industries. So for now, these are the latest lines coming, whether from the Houthi-affiliated media or from Israeli-affiliated media.
Okay, and any more this hour about whether there have been any casualties or nothing yet?
For now, we don't know. There's no reports of casualties, but probably in the coming minutes we'll know.
And just we're looking at the latest pictures. These are from the Yemeni, these are from Ben Gurion Airport. This was in fact from the attack, the missile attack that was launched from Yemen. So that is some of the context to all of this. Ali, just remind us once again how we got here and whether this attack is a surprise or not. I mean, Netanyahu has been saying that he's promising to hit back, and he's going to hit back hard.
Well, absolutely, with Netanyahu threatening to hit, but he gave himself a kind of a space that he's not going to hit directly, and he said he's reserving the right to choose the time and the location, but it was expected.
Rami, I cut you off, and you were talking about the possible implications for the region. Please go on.
Well, if Israel continues with Western support from quite a few countries and military equipment and stuff and intelligence, if Israel continues to do things like attacking Hodeidah port is largely serving civilians. in an area that's already poor in food and supplies. And if they keep doing things in Yemen like they've done in Gaza, like they did in Lebanon, they're mostly going to hurt the civilian population. They're going to increase the level of anger, fear, ultimately some desperation, because these are countries, these Arab countries don't have the means, most of them, to quickly fix these things up or import food or do other things. So it makes the population in many Arab countries increasingly restive and angry, and they don't know what to do. They don't have political rights. They don't have the ability to throw out the government, bring in another government. They just become more radicalized. This is how Al-Qaeda was created years ago. This is how Hamas and Hezbollah and Ansarullah came into being as forces that came out of these indigenous movements, nationalist forces, unlike Al-Qaeda, which was not, but Hezbollah, Hamas, and Ansarullah grew out of their respective countries as a response to the inability of their elected or chosen, whatever, existing governments, their inability to defend the people, protect the country, and meet their basic rights in terms of economic and social development, medical care, etc. So this is the logical consequence, which is new political movements that sometimes displace old ones. So Ansarullah was not elected, but it took over by force because the existing government, which is now hunkered down in the south with assistance from some Arab countries, but has no real impact. This is likely to happen if it keeps going. But the Yemenis are different than the other Arab countries in the sense that they have tremendous dedication to the political cause of Palestine. The few times that I went there years ago, many times I went there for work, I was amazed at the response of the Yemenis when I be talking and they say, "Oh, you're Palestinian?" I say, "Yes," and they say, "Oh, please come here, let me buy you a meal or help you out," not out of charity, just out of they loved. And same thing happened when we were in Morocco on our honeymoon, and waiters in restaurants, when they knew we were Palestinians, and my wife's from Jerusalem, they'd say, "Oh, Jerusalem, please, can I bring you some sweets?" There's an awe in the Arab region and in most of the global South at the continued insistence of the Palestinian people to resist Israeli aggression, which is funded and supported by Western colonial forces. If this expands now to Yemen, the Yemenis are very nationalistic. They're also technically very capable, and they have the geography that helps them hide most of their facilities, the mountains, which the other Arab don't very much. Mm-hmm. And they've shown that they're able to absorb the technical knowledge they need. Some of it comes from Iran, some from Hezbollah, some from other sources. They're very able people, and there's a saying in the Quran that wisdom comes from Yemen. That these are wise people. So the
some of it, according to reports, domestically produced as well, right?
Well, they produce a lot of their stuff domestically, right. And if they've got supersonic missiles now, and by the way, Iran 2 days ago announced they have a new supersonic missile that can evade the defenses in Israel. So this should worry a lot of Israelis, and just bombing the hell out of Yemen is not going to solve that.
Okay, Rami Khouri, stand by for a second, because I'd like to go to Mike Hanna. Mike, you're joining us from the White House this hour. What can you tell us you're hearing from your end?
Well, basically, this started with a report on Houthi TV, which alleged U.S. involvement, and then picked up by Israeli media, which downgraded that to some kind of coordinating status for the U.S. As to what is being said here at the moment, precisely nothing. We have approached the Pentagon, we have approached the White House for some comment on these latest reports of action in Yemen. No response as yet. So at the moment, we have no verification from this side whatsoever. What we do know, back in March, the U.S. launched a massive operation in Yemen over a period of days. That was the biggest operation in Trump's second term, caused a great deal of damage, many casualties. Trump relished in it, saying that it was a major victory for U.S. operations against Yemen and a massive strike against the Houthis. But in this current operation, as yet, no verification whatsoever of U.S. involvement, whether direct or whether or not that is, in fact, that it was some sort of coordinated role. So very difficult to speak further about this with the lack of information that we have. I'm waiting to hear something, as I said, from the Pentagon, from the White House. But as yet, there's been no information whatsoever, which is in a way a trifle strange and raises questions about any U.S. involvement in this whatsoever, despite the fact that I am reporting it from the White House, and that is that normally the Trump administration would seize on an operation like this as proof of its efforts in terms of diminishing the efforts of the Houthis. This has been, it was a Trump campaign issue, action against the Houthis. It was part of his statements during his second term of presidency. And I said it was a major centerpiece in terms of U.S. operations in the Middle East, that massive strike launched by President Trump and carried on with much glory, according to Trump himself, saying that it had struck a massive strike against the Houthis and that it had destroyed their capabilities. Well, the fact that this report, if verified, that the Houthis did strike against Israeli targets, which was indeed verified, but what is not verified is the degree of U.S. involvement, if any. But what the strike does appear to show is that far from the Trump administration's claims that the Houthi abilities have been diminished, this does not appear the case. If it can carry out strikes such as this against a target in Israel, particularly such a target as Ben Gurion, then very clearly it would appear to the outside observer that the Houthis still have a massive military capability to carry out such a strike in such hostile area against the type of defenses that the Israelis have arrayed against them. So President Trump's claimed that the abilities of the Houthis have been diminished through the U.S. operations there back in March appear to not test the test of time. Very clearly, it would appear that this is not the case, given the attack that has just taken place. We will let you know once we have heard any verification of this from either the White House or indeed the Pentagon.
Okay, Mike, yeah, and we'll cross to you in the next news hour in about 30 minutes' time. We'll let you go for now, and you can gather as much information as possible. Thank you so much for that reporting from the White House. So just a reminder of the breaking news this hour, and that is Israel has launched airstrikes with about 30 fighter jets, we understand, on Yemen in coordination with the United States. And according to reports, at least 9 targets were hit in the Hodeidah port in Yemen. No reports yet of any casualties or injuries, but we are following the story very closely, and we'll bring you all the latest information as and when we get it right here on Al Jazeera. We'll see you for the news hour with more news right at the top of the hour. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.